Shalom, party people, and welcome to the 12th C. Let's see, we're dealing with February 10, 2022 at 5:18-ish in the morning. Rocking the Ruck March with Mr. J.D. Stone. You want to tell the internet hello, J.D. Stone?
Good morning, internet.
Yeah. I probably can walk through that puddle, but I'd prefer not to. Well, I know you have your waterproof boots on, and my little Merrills or whatever that I'm running around in are water resistant, but when the splash goes up into your socks, then it trickles down. I'm just not really a fan of having to get my feet wet if I can avoid it. And yes, I can cross through a puddle that size in these shoes, but with a 50-pound bag, I'm sure my splash will be a little bit more than when we're running.
Maybe.
So I guess that one's one of the work smarter, not harder situations.
And I could make fun of you for trying to keep your feet dry. That you should tough it out, but there's not really any reason.
Well, Lieutenant Dan said to keep your feet dry and change your socks every chance you get, so.
Yeah. Do you have extra socks in your ruck?
I do, actually.
Nice.
I have 3 pair of socks. I'll run around in the same clothes, but socks and underwear are one of those that are an essential.
Yes.
And I've actually gotten into the habit of anytime I go on a trip, take double the socks and underwear necessary for the trip. So it's a week's worth of clothes. I'm taking 2 weeks worth of socks and undies.
Okay.
And never had a problem, but it's always nice to, like, even if it's just a mentality thing of being able to put on clean underwear. And maybe that comes from being a kid, they're like, you can have a bad day and at least say to yourself, well, at least I put on clean underwear.
I never heard that.
You never heard?
No. But I was homeschooled.
Well, yeah, I guess your clean underwear wasn't always far away.
No.
Whereas, so when I was working inside an adult institution, I always had a full change of clothes, including shoes, in my locker.
Uh-huh.
And it came in handy a couple of times. And then I would have my emergency response team assigned locker that I would always have my uniform for the emergency response team and my boots and my full radio set to go. And people were like, man, why are you running that stage? I'm like, well, if there's an emergency, we're supposed to report here first. So my stuff's always here, doesn't matter what vehicle I'm in, doesn't matter what's going on. I come grab my stuff, and I've got spares of everything at the house too. So in the event that it's don't report here, you gotta report somewhere else, I have that as well. And don't think that it doesn't ride around in the car when I'm out of my normal window of area of operation. So, but
keeping that stuff on hand is very important.
We'd have a situation where we'd go get somebody and I'd get bodily fluids on me, whether it was intentional that they were thrown on us or it was a situation that it just happened. It's like, hey, I've got a full change of clothes here. I don't have to worry about, either scavenging or whatever, because there's a policy for if you get body fluids on you that it has to be laundered at that adult institution through their laundry system, and they have a separate one just for staff clothing. So it's not like it's being washed with Bubba's socks, but you're still out that clothing. They won't let you go home with it. So what are you going to do? And having something that's yours instead of taking a loaner item that you don't know where it was, what was on it.
Yeah.
And that's fine for a shirt, but are you going to do loaner underwear? No. I'm not.
No.
Like, I'll go commando before I'll do loaner underwear.
Yeah, I was always puzzled going to the local thrift shop and you see underwear. I don't know.
If it's packaged where like it's very obvious that was factory sealed, that's one thing.
No,
but
loose tighty whities.
Yeah, loose tighty whities, that's a no-go for me because they ain't white no more.
And if you're in that condition where you can't afford your own underwear, no.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a problem. Where your priorities from your panhandling, that money is all going to booze before underwear.
Yeah.
That might be a reason, I mean, indicative of the greater reason why you're on the street in the first place.
Well, there's on the street because times are tough, and then there's on the street because you want to stay on the street.
Yes.
And there's also a lot of mental illness that goes into things.
Yes.
So like it's a multifaceted problem.
Yeah.
But
so it's not a disparaging thing necessarily that their priorities are messed up enough.
If you're on the street longer than a month, it's a choice. Now it may not be you have your mental faculties about you for that choice, but there's enough programs out there that will put you up and help change the trajectory of your life. That, like I said, if you're on the street longer than a month, it's choice. Because you have so many people going back to it.
I can see that.
But me personally, if it was just me, I wouldn't be in a city on the street. I'd be in the woods.
So that's a whole different mindset.
Right. Now, families involved, totally different situation, but because that's when it's a guaranteed, hey, you're gonna morning, you're gonna take the free help that's out there and then rebuild.
Yes. Well, if it's a zombie apocalypse, then you're going to be in the woods.
No, you're not. You're going to be dead if it's a zombie apocalypse.
Well, yes. Probably. But if you defy the odds and you break out, and you get to that Max Brooks level, then you might be okay. In the woods. You're better in the woods than in an urban center.
Fewer bodies, yeah, but it's still a cost-benefit analysis of if you're not already living that way, your likelihood of thriving in that situation is zero.
Because you don't have the infrastructures in there.
Well, you don't have the reps and sets in of actually being able to do the bushcrafty things. But if you're gonna, like, so many people get this wrong, but the whole purpose of bugging out is not to go on an adventure, it's to get from point A to point B, and that point B needs to be set up to sustain you. So your bag needs to have exactly what you need to get from point A to point B. And we're not going hunting, fishing, and scavenging. Your bag needs to be full of the food and the water that it's going to take to get you there, or the water treatment along the way. Like, you have people who start with the bag, and that's wrong. You start with, where am I going? And then you work backwards. All right, how am I getting there? Okay, what happens if the vehicle breaks down? Okay, so if I have to walk there, how far is it? All right, now you plan your route according to, all right, it's gonna take me 10 days to get there. I need 3 water sources per day along the way, and that can be a puddle, but I need planned 3 sources of water per day. I need 10 days worth of food, so make it 12 to give you some redundancy. You need a way to filter, treat your water, and then you need shelter. You know, you build out what it's going to take for that. And I don't understand why more people aren't going after like your ultralight backpackers for advice on what to put in their bags. Like you get people who like, oh, what's in a bug out bag from all these preppers on YouTube, and they're copying these bags that are for somebody else's context, and they're just throwing stuff in there
from somebody else's sponsors,
right? And you're building a 40-pound bag that doesn't even have your food in it, or if you're putting food in it, you're putting in like these like survival cookies or whatever that are really high calorie but don't taste anything. And you could look at what ultralight backpackers are doing for their food. And I'm not saying go and buy an expensive tent, go buy an expensive sleeping bag or whatever. But what I am saying is these people who are hiking the long distance trails, that they're out there for 2 months, living out of a bag that weighs 20 pounds. They know a thing or two about how to take that and still have full comfort.
right?
Versus somebody that's literally just running around with a bag that has a whole bunch of things in it that they're probably never going to use. And I'm not saying having some of those things isn't nice, but if it doesn't serve the purpose of where you're going, if you walk 3 days and it never comes out of your bag, did you really need it? And then it's just dead weight.
Right.
And you also get the people who are talking about, oh, I should, just train more and be able to carry a heavy bag. You and I are experiencing this right now. It's like when your bag is 10 pounds lighter.
Right.
Man, you can run with that thing and not even be winded. Like the other week, my bag was 30 pounds. Now it's 54. When it was 30, I could actually run a 10-minute mile with that 30-pounder and really not be that worse off than when we would run without. I mean, I couldn't go as far, but like I wasn't that much more put out because of it.
Right.
Whereas now it being 50 pounds, that's a bit of a burden.
Yes.
Could I lightly jog for a little bit in it? Yeah. But a sustained march is really about all I can hope for with 50 pounds. And yes, I'm training for it, but you better believe when I'm done training and it goes back to a 30-pound bag, now I'm light on my feet. So yeah, train heavy, but you pack light.
Yeah. Be realistic about your capabilities. Don't just think that you can train and compensate.
Yeah.
Unlimited, especially.
Yeah.
You've got stopping points, capability points.
And along the way of that walk, I'm not going to try and hunt and fish and scavenge because that's wasting valuable time.
That's a lot of time.
And the point is getting from point A to point B. So that's where I have issue with what a lot of these YouTubers are doing. on building the perfect bug out bag. It's like, what's in my bag is irrelevant to what your needs are, because we are not going to the same place. So start with where you're going and then build it out from there. Work backwards.
You could do a parody bug out bag thing, like mom packing from Disney World or something.
Yeah. Well,
use the same language though.
Yeah. I think that would be fun. Context though is, if you've got small kids, you're basically a prepper anyway.
Yeah.
Because buying in bulk is more advantageous on those things, and then you're having to plan out every time you go somewhere. All right, this is how long we're going to be gone. This is what we anticipate needing. And you get the practice of that all the time, and you suck at it your first 2 months, but then you start learning. Okay, yeah, that too, but
you learn after a while. It's the same paradigm as with the experienced hikers, long distance hikers, and the guys who are playing pretend. You don't need most of the stuff that is in a parent's bug out bag.
Agreed.
You need wipes, you need diapers.
Maybe a change of clothes and some food.
Yes. Change of clothes, yeah. I don't even pack food for the kids. Tell them to suck it up.
Yeah. I base it off of how long we're going to be gone. If it's 2 hours, yeah, suck it up. Or, we got something. But if it's 4 hours, I'm going to have like some applesauce and some crackers.
Yeah, we always have a food plan.
Yeah.
We don't let our kids do blood sugar crashes. That's miserable for everybody.
And it's hey, I have every intention of being back here in 30 minutes. Yeah, not worried about it. Diaper and wipes. But if it's hey, I know I'm going to be gone for at least 4 hours, plan like it's 6 or 8, just in case,
I guess another part of my deal, though, is that having kids is like living with the bears, who are always getting into your bug out bag. So that's why I don't have snacks in the bag.
We were just talking about that earlier, about how your kids rearranged your bag.
Yes. They wanted to get the Pathfinder manual out, so...
Yeah, well, good for them.
Yeah, just look at the pictures.
I'd say that's a problem worth having if your kids want to look at your Pathfinder manual.
I suppose. But again, it's the D&D Pathfinder.
Right. I remember. But still.
Yeah, I don't think I actually ever got to play it.
I got a buddy who's really into those tabletop role playing. And good for him, I guess.
Yeah. We did one time.
I send him a lot of memes about it, but I've never played.
Yeah, I played one time with my wife and friend, and it was not D&D. It was called a one-page gaming system. It was oversimplified, and we basically served as each other's GM the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was a bugging out scenario. So we got to bring in all of our different levels of expertise. He was a pilot, so when we got to a plane, he knew that one of the problems we had to deal with was the weight distribution in the plane.
Yeah.
How heavy can we pack this thing?
Well, that's something that a lot of people don't think about. This is not just how heavy, but like you were getting at weight distribution, is where. Your little planes, it's pretty hard to throw them out of what's called weight and balance. So it's like a teeter-totter, but it's on multiple angles. You put too much weight in one place, and then
Yeah.
Yeah, it causes a lot of problems. The best analogy I can make is you driving your car for forever, and you're putting weight in that front left spot, and so it wears your tires in a particular way that eventually you'll start drifting. And that's why you rotate your tires, is that it causes even wear. Well, if you never did that, you'd always drift. Well, if you're in an airplane and all of your weight is in the back, then that is going to be nose up, and that can put you into a situation where the air is not going to flow right over the flight surfaces, and you'll actually fall out of the sky in an extreme situation. But in a normal situation where you're still just slightly out of balance, that's going to put your tail in that situation a little bit down, and it's going to be very hard to land properly, and you'll probably skid. But you'll still have an inefficient flight pattern.
Because you're constantly
Right.
compensating.
Yeah, your small aircraft are really easy to throw out of balance. Like, you really have to watch that. Or no, I apologize. Your small aircraft are really easy to overweigh and really hard to throw out of balance because there's not too many places to put the weight. Your large aircraft are really hard to throw out of balance, but really easy, or really hard to throw out of weight, but really easy to throw out of balance. Yeah, my brain's not working. I messed up on both of them. But yeah, large ones, it's hard to overweigh them because usually they can carry, or if you filled it full of lead, would really be about the only way you could overweigh it. Because
yeah, the C-130s, they can fly Abrams.
Yeah, it's a density issue and not a volume issue. If you put anything in there made out of steel, it's going to be fine, but if it's made out of lead, then if it's full to the brim, that's where you might throw it out of weight. But out of balance, you put that Abrams in the wrong spot, and then it's on the force is too much. And the best analogy, again, is a teeter-totter. You got your 4-year-old on one end and you're on the other. You better scoot up, otherwise that 4-year-old's not going to have any fun on the teeter-totter.
Right.
So you just think about that across a 3-dimensional axis instead of a 1-dimensional axis, and it applies all the way around. Like, you can take off and be well within your parameters, but your fuel burn can throw you out because the weight in the tanks has now changed and you don't have your counterbalance anymore.
Yeah,
and
that was the other thing that he was like,
yeah,
how much fuel do we have? And then I was like, wait, how do you even pump fuel? Would our characters know how to do that? Because I certainly don't. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well,
it's good to have people on board who can inform you on the troubles that you have.
Your base level exercise, and any good shop teacher or economics teacher will do this assignment. How do you make a pencil? Write me an essay on how to make a pencil. And people are like, well, you get some wood. Okay, well, how are you going to get the wood? What are you going to do?
Yep.
And it's even your simplest things of wood, graphite, and rubber, and a small band of aluminum. 4 items, maybe the paint that's on it. You have systems that are very, very deep on timber and cutting the timber and shipping it. Okay, well, how do you make the products that are going to ship it? And then you have the whole rubber thing on, is it synthetic rubber or is it natural rubber? And all of the systems that are in place for that. And then mining the graphite and refining it and making it into the pencil lead that is going to go into the wood, and drilling the hole, and that band of aluminum, mining the aluminum, refining it, stamping it out, and applying it, and then like,
Yep.
and that isn't even the basics. That's barely a bullet point summary. There's super, super complex systems in place for making the simplest things that people do not take into account. And what sounds like a one paragraph answer really should be a 4-page answer.
Yep. I believe I heard on NPR about a gentleman who decided for his, I think he was at one of those universities that just says you can make your major be anything you want. Do anything, pick and choose all the classes and stuff. He decided that his goal was going to be to hand make a toaster.
Ooh.
From that ground up.
Yeah.
Bit. So, he had to study metallurgy and electricity, engineering, and all that stuff. And he did succeed in making a monstrosity of a machine that toasted toast one time.
Hey.
And then it broke. But
I think at that point I'd be more worried about making like a solar toaster or something.
maybe.
Where it's glass and you just slide it in.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, but I don't think the goal was to toast something.
Right.
He was making a point to himself,
right,
I believe, and everybody else about that same thing, about your systems, how reliant we are on trade now, and relying on other people's expertise and the infrastructures that we have in place.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
sense.
And then the very simple machine, a toaster that you can buy for $10 at any department store or maybe a grocery store, I don't know. Was not very reliable because he made it by hand, all of those terminals and whatever he was making.
Well, I guess the real question is how many times did he make it? Would it have been better on his 100th attempt?
I'm sure it would have been, but it would have been the amount of work
right.
you have to put into it would make it prohibitive to, and you've got to think about the overheads too. How
right.
He's got to eat and drink and...
Well, he's definitely not going to have any toast if he doesn't figure out how to make that.
Right. Well, and the irony being, you don't actually need toast.
Right. But I'm just saying, if he's going to eat, I'm trying to make it funny, but...
Oh, no, I know, and I do think it's funny that on top of that he's put all that effort into a basically luxury item.
Yeah.
And one that we take for granted.
Well, there's a book that's written for kids that I really like. And there's somebody who's very spoiled and they're being served a meal and the person who prepared the meal didn't have all of the things to make the meal. And so they were just doing the best they could with what they had. And this spoiled person was like, this toast is raw. Is it safe to eat raw toast? Yes. It's called bread. But yeah, conversation I was having with my boss was about getting them the feedback they needed on a particular project by actually doing something instead of us talking the situation to death. I told them, I was like, man, I learned by doing, and y'all want feedback on this, so I'm gonna go get my hands dirty and then I'll be able to give you all the feedback you're ever gonna want from it, instead of, hey everyone, let's sit around the conference room and let's hash this out for 3 hours, and we're in theory land, and we're what-ifing until the moon turns blue. And nobody really wants to actually do something because they think they can talk about it. And I'm like, hang on a second. Skateboarding analogy here, because I used to downhill skateboard in college. Yes, there's value in me talking about skateboarding, but I'm going to learn 100 times more by actually hopping on the board.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yes, you can talk me through something that's difficult that you've done before, but even then, I'm going to have to try it out a couple of times before I've got that automaticity.
There's so many applications in that too.
Yeah.
Ways to describe that. But in jiu-jitsu, you've got a guy who's seen the YouTube videos. And he's like, let me tell you something about it. No.
Have you done it? Have you put in the sweat equity? Do you have the right calluses in the right places?
Yeah. I mean, let me tell you, takedowns are hard. We drill them all the time. Just like, okay, this takedown, you throw them over your shoulder. This one, you kind of toss them with your hip. And this one, you kick their feet out from under them. When you actually get a guy that you want to take down, he does not want to be taken down. It is a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the more dangerous parts of jiu-jitsu, so we don't do it very often when we're rolling because you don't want to get injured.
Right. But there's the other side of the practice that goes into it, that if you're not getting injuries in practice, are you doing it right? And I'm not talking about being stupid.
Yeah.
But
Are you going harder?
right.
Yeah, there was actually just last night, I was rolling. There were 4 females, last night. Rolled with one of them whom I'm more familiar with, and she's quite aggressive. And she was digging her elbows into my legs to break my guard. It hurt a lot.
Uh-huh.
So when I was rolling with another younger girl who was actually, I think she was the blue belt, so she's more experienced, but she's much younger, so she had not been rolling with the adults for very long. I said, the other one, she was digging her elbows, and she said, yeah, the professor told me not to do that.
Yeah.
I said, oh, well, he told you not to, I guess not. She said, yeah, it was something about sportsmanship. And, oh, no, screw that. If I can't handle some girl digging her elbows into my legs when we're rolling, then I don't think I need to be in this sport.
Yeah. Oh, we were doing defensive tactics for our emergency response team stuff that I used to be on, which I'm not anymore. But, and I tell you, the injuries that do happen in training are lessons learned, and they need to happen. And you avoid the worst ones. You don't break any bones or anything.
Yes.
But I've dislocated 2 shoulders in training. Now, me personally dislocating somebody else's is not mine. And I accidentally missed the pad striking somebody, and if I had been a 1/4 inch lower, I would have broken his collarbone when I hit him. So it's one of those that, does that stuff happen? Yes, it does.
It would happen a lot more in combat, though.
Right.
Combat speed, if you did not do that training, though.
Well,
And you would lose. You would not. The whole point in those violent interactions is to, I mean, that's that last resort, that's when diplomacy has failed and you need to win.
yeah.
And because if you're that desperate, you've got to win.
But it's also knowing, okay, these are the limits that I can subject somebody else to without bringing them harm. Because on that emergency response stuff, we would have to go in and pull somebody out of a cell that they didn't want to be in. But they didn't want to leave either, which didn't make sense. But it's, hey, there's a safety hazard in that cell, and they are trying to hurt themselves or somebody else.
Right.
And we have to go in and get them, restrain them, and put them someplace else.
Right.
And they don't want to be moved. And all forms of negotiation have failed, and somebody's life could be on the line. So we go in and restrain somebody and remove them, and then
well, and that's part of what those elbows were.
Right.
Those are not lethal.
Right.
It was very uncomfortable.
I bet.
But that's why I said I need to learn how to be in that uncomfortable position. That's good training.
Right. Well, and arguably what we're doing right now is we're being uncomfortable for the sake of, in the future, it won't be as difficult to carry our bags because we're training with them.
Right.
So they're, back on the prepper thing, what really annoys me is how many people who claim to be preppers, and I'm going to tell you this right now, like, I don't even consider myself a prepper. I consider myself like, hey, I'm just trying to cover basic emergencies. Power goes out, someone loses a job for a little while, hurricane, tornado, whatever.
Practical Western 21st century prepping.
Yeah, well, snowstorm not that long ago really humbled a lot of people.
Yeah.
And being able to perpetuate that normalcy for the people you love, that's a great place to start. But so many people who are preppers, finger air quotes, preppers, they're out of shape.
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose of this channel is conditioning. And yes, some of that is exercise, but it's practicing, actually going and doing hard things. Get off the couch. Yes, you're going to be sore. It sucks. Figure out how to do it now when it doesn't cost you anything but your time instead of on the worst day of your life. That's my context, at least. And starting with physical fitness is an excellent place to begin.
It is.
But yeah.
If you want to end on that note.
I'm not opposed to ending on a note along those lines. Do you want to say anything to the internet before we adjourn?
I don't think I have anything left. Not for today.
You don't have any dad advice for...
No, I think you hit it pretty good.
Okay.
You're prepped.
All right. Internet, go do hard things.